Cove Media. Sorry, I'll repeat that. Tim Beck is with Alcove Media. He's an engineer by study and has his MBA from Villanova University from 2021. He's an Ohio native, but he's been in Philly for the last 10 years. And his wife is actually Colleen Murphy Beck, the CEO of Alcove Media. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Tim. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Looks great.
Okay, awesome. So thank you for the introduction, Lisa. The background kind of Alcove Media is basically we're a real estate media company. So we do photography, videography, drone work, 3D tours, basically anything you need to help you guys market a property. And I think even more importantly than that, win your next listing, right? I think listing media is kind of it's now a really big thing for marketing yourself as a realtor. And I think it's an important aspect of a realtor's marketing campaign. So I'll give you a little background on our company. We were basically founded in 2015 by a realtor. My wife, Colleen, who runs the company, she's the CEO. She was a realtor and still is a realtor, actually. She's not active by any means. She just kind of keeps it in case we decide to move. And we think that that's kind of a great way to get started because it allowed us really to form the products and the company around who our client was, which was awesome. We're based out of Ambler. We have a team of 25 and we're growing. 6 are employees, and the rest of our photographers are 1099s. A lot of them love that because it's kind of like an Uber model. They can, work when they want to work. They can not work when they don't want to work. We have an employee whose birthday is in January every year. A photographer whose birthday is in January every year, and he loves to take the entire month off and go to Florida. So he enjoys that setup. We're very team oriented. So we typically have, I'll call it like 4 to 6 team get-togethers where we get everybody together in the company. We, share stories and do something fun, go to a Phillies game or something similar. And basically we're, here to provide you with the best possible media at a great price with awesome customer service. So this just gives you an idea of kind of the products that we offer. The only thing that I would want to point out here that maybe you guys haven't seen before is on the bottom right over here, the social media marketing kit and property website. So that's an awesome tool. It basically gives you 2 things. One, it gives you a customer facing property website that it will take all of the media that we shoot, put it into a website. It pre-populates it. You can, use that to market the property. You can show it to your client. It's a really good marketing tool from that standpoint. And then the other thing it gives you is an entire library of pre-populated social media tiles, social media reels, posts for Facebook, basically anything you can imagine, it gives you. And it's all customizable. You can change the text on it. You can change the pictures on it if you want to. It's super easy, but it comes pre-populated. So it's not like you have to build anything. And I think that's a $35 package. So it's a really awesome value for what you get. And this gives an idea of our service area. I think I'm running low on time here, so I'll speed it up. Basically, Philadelphia area and the greater suburbs. We're going to Southern Jersey and Northern Delaware. And other than that, I will put into the chat our contact information, and you guys can feel free to get in touch at any point. If you have used us and you are a customer, thank you very much. And we appreciate your business. And if you have not used us, feel free to give us a try. I'll put a promo code into the chat as well that you can use for 10% off. It's just Alcove 10. And I will turn it back over to the team at BCAR, and I'll hang around for any questions that you have. Feel free to put them in the chat.
All right. Thank you, Tim. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Pam. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. My name is Pam Croak. I'm the CEO here at the Bucks County Association of Realtors. We're thrilled that you're joining us today for one of our great Zoom Power Hours. And today is a special day because we have with us Deanne Rymarowicz, who is Senior Counsel at the National Association of Realtors. She focuses on risk management resources and the NAR insurance program. And that insurance program is where we as a local association get coverage for all types of things, including cyber coverage, which is very important. Before joining NAR, she was general counsel for the Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors for 8 years. She's also served as Deputy Attorney General for the Nevada Real Estate Division. She has extensive background in transactional and administrative law, focusing on corporate, insurance, and mining law. I'm sure that comes in handy, the mining law, right? Welcome, Deanne, and thank you so much for being here today.
It is my pleasure, Pam. Thank you so much. And thank you to the Bucks County Association of Realtors for inviting NAR Legal Affairs to be with you today. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Pam, if you can give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. So we have a lot of ground to cover today. We are going to talk about, this is cybersecurity in the AI era. So we'll talk about the impact that artificial intelligence is having on cybersecurity and the risks that you face as a broker, as a small business. We'll talk about the latest crime statistics from the FBI, and then an update on real estate fraud, basically wire fraud. And I really want this to be practical information. So we've got a lot of best practices. We'll touch lightly on insurance because, as Pam mentioned, I'm kind of an insurance geek. So I want to touch briefly on insurance. And then we've got some resources. Now, we're going to go through all of this. I want to save some time at the end for questions. So if you're not able to scribble everything down, you're going to get a copy of these slides. And this is being recorded so that you can go back and re-listen to what I have covered. So I want to start with a couple of goals. I have 2 goals in this presentation. The first one is to kind of scare you a little bit, to see what's happening out there and help kind of dust off those cobwebs if you haven't really looked at your cyber policy or your cyber security in a while. And then I want to prepare you for those risks and how to combat the biggest risks that small businesses face, again, with very practical measures. They'll be peppered throughout the presentation and then a full talk about some best practices towards the end. So you're going to get scared, then you're going to be prepared to go out there and tackle those risks. So you may have seen several real estate trainers talking about how to use ChatGPT and other generative AI, we call it Gen AI, models in your business to help you market listings, perhaps create listing descriptions. But those same tools, generative AI and algorithms, are being used by cybercriminals to help augment their already prodigious cyber crimes. And when it's used for malicious purposes, it's called dark AI, kind of like the dark web. So here in this section, we want to see how AI is being used to help forward cybercrime. Now, CrowdStrike is a major cybercrime kind of watchdog and defense group, and they called 2024 the year of the enterprising adversary. Now, if you'll recall, it's not been that long since ChatGPT was launched and generative AI kind of exploded. So it's interesting that 2024 is that year of the enterprising adversary. So here's an overview of how generative AI is being used in cybercrime. So all major categories of adversaries, the nation states like China, Korea, Russia, e-crime, and what they call hacktivists were really early adopters of generative AI. They could see how it could help propel their business. And make no mistake, cybercrime is a business for these attackers. And that malicious use of AI has been growing over the past year. They are predicting that it is going to even explode more in 2025. and particularly with social engineering. We're going to talk more about what social engineering is and how to protect yourself. The AI and algorithms allow the criminals to increase the pace and the scale of their attacks. Now, this famous Cholima, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. This is a fascinating case study in how AI was used to basically infiltrate companies around the world. So what happened with this scheme is that North Korea, which is a nation state that is heavily engaged in cybercrime, they generated fake LinkedIn profiles with fake photos, all AI created, to get job interviews for IT positions in companies around the world. And then during the interviews, they were using AI to generate plausible responses to the questions that the interviewers were asking. And these fake profiles, which were backed by criminals, hackers, they were hired by these companies into remote IT roles, and they were able to execute their attack internally. Literally, AI became the Trojan horse that then the criminals were literally hired and then activated their malware and data breaches and stole property data from these companies all around the world. In another scenario, so generative AI is also being used for business email compromise. We'll talk more about what that is. But these deep fake videos and voice clones. So in one instance, in early 2024, an unidentified threat actor used publicly available footage of a target company's CFO, their chief financial officer, and other employees. And they created credible deep fake clones and socially engineered the victim company into transferring over $25 million into the hacker's bank account. So deep fake videos that are asking unusual things of you or asking you to send money, really stop, slow down, and think about, do I know this person? Is this the kind of ask that this person would make of me? Let me call this person, because if I know this person, let me give them a call and see if they really sent this video to our team. So these nation state attackers are using AI to infiltrate social media, to create disinformation, and even to create fake videos and images in the country of India's election process last year. So as you can see, this is pretty scary. AI is being used for cybercrime all over the world. Now, let's take a look at these statistics from the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. Now, these statistics are just from 2023. That is the most recent report that's available. Normally, these reports come out in mid-April, which is why we chose this date, because we really thought that the report would be out by now for 2024, but these are the 2023 statistics. So within the last 5 years, almost 3.8 million complaints have been filed with the Internet Crime Complaint Center, resulting in over $37 billion of losses. Now, these are record amounts. Over 2,000 complaints a day come into the FBI, and over 800,000 came in just in 2023. I'm guessing that number went up for 2024 with over $12 billion in losses. Now, remember, these are just reports to the FBI. The actual impact of cybercrime is greater than that, because not every malicious act, not every cybercrime or wire fraud is actually reported to the FBI. So the actual numbers are greater than what's reported. As I mentioned, these are record numbers. Complaints are up 10%, and the monetary loss is up 22%. Now let's look at the top 5. Now this is by dollar value, the top 5 losses. The first is investment scams. So that's where someone promises a particular result and gets people to invest. And of course, it is a complete sham, and everyone loses their money. Now, email compromise, that is really important for real estate brokers and agents to understand how email can be hacked. And, the hacker infiltrates the email and maybe diverts emails to themselves or creates fake emails to get your clients to do things that you do not want them to do. Tech support, this also could include government impersonation scams. That was number 3. And that is where, someone offers you tech support and then remotely accesses your computer and makes changes to your computer, and in many cases installs malware that can remain dormant or put a virus on your system or basically shut your entire network down. Personal data breach is where the attackers are stealing information. Think about the data that you possess about your clients, about your team members and your employees, and that is all targetable by cyber criminals. And then the 5th highest are confidence and romance scams, and this is particularly hitting the elderly population, where they basically scammed into sending someone money. Now, keep in mind that according to FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Information Network, the government agency, email compromise is the leading source of real estate wire fraud. So again, it's important to understand how email compromise affects your business. So how did the state of Pennsylvania fare? Well, you are number 7 out of 50 states and 4 territories for cybercrime in 2023, and number 6 in total losses. So cybercrime is definitely taking place within your state, and even more reason to be vigilant about your cyber activities. Now let's look at this case. You may be familiar with this case, but here is an example of email compromise and how that can lead to pretty severe financial losses. So in this case, the purchaser, they were purchasing some services from the vendor. They sent a small deposit, $6,000, to a bank account, which was received by the vendor. The vendor then sent instructions on how to close the deal, including financial information, where to send the wire, how much to send, etc. Within minutes, an email hacker who had already hacked into the system sent different instructions, fake instructions, that had some pretty glaring errors, like grammatical errors. It didn't sound like the vendor. There were very particular mistakes that could have been caught in that email. Maybe the biggest clue was that it was a completely different bank account. It was a different bank account than where they sent the deposit, and a different bank account from the true instructions that the vendor sent just moments before the fake instructions. So the vendor lost, so they sent the money to close the deal, over $500,000 to the hackers. And then when they realized that they had been, taken and stolen from, they filed a breach of contract claim against the vendor, claiming that the vendor's breach, the hacking of the vendor's system, is what resulted in their loss. And the court looked at that and said, yes, it is a rebuttable presumption that hacking caused your loss, but we're going to give the vendor a chance to defend that presumption. And the court found that the vendor had done many things to shore up their email system. They used firewalls. They had email notifications for outside emails. It was hosted by a credible third party. And the court concluded that a rigid standard of strict liability arising from a hacked email account isn't practical, because no email platform is impervious to hacking. And interestingly, the court said that both sides must use reasonable care to avoid losses. And they looked at the purchaser and said, there were a lot of mistakes in that email. You should have caught those, or at least it should have caused a question in your mind. And the court gave a fantastic response and a fantastic practical measure that everyone can take when you receive something that doesn't sound quite right, or you notice some mistakes in it. And here it is. Here's the low-tech way to combat cybercrime: a phone call. The court literally said a simple phone call would have revealed the fraud and avoided the loss. So they really chastised the buyer for not taking that step of independently verifying, literally picking up the phone and checking with the vendor to make sure that those instructions were real. So that is my number one low-tech takeaway: is use the phone. I mean, you know, your business is tied to your phone. I always see members with, you know, their earpiece or they're on the phone. That is the lifeblood of your business. Use it to your advantage to combat cyber crime. It is really simple. And here are some other ways to be prepared to combat cyber crime. First is awareness. Taking this webinar, watching this webinar when on the recording, you're informing yourself of what's happening in the marketplace. You can also visit the ic3.gov website, where they are constantly posting the latest scams, so you can stay up to date. Always be vigilant with your emails and online transactions, and don't give out your personal information to everyone. You know, if someone calls and says, you know, I got a call from CVS Pharmacy about one of my prescription drugs, but this was CVS headquarters calling. And I said, you know, I don't know this phone number. I don't know you. I need to verify this. And so I did some research and I called them back, and then, you know, engaged in the conversation. So also remember to make prevention a routine activity within your business. So those really annoying pop-ups that says we need to install an update, that's because Windows or your operating system has found a vulnerability, and that is patching the vulnerability. So things like, you know, updating that your operating system, your browser, and your firewalls are up to date is crucial with cybercrime. Remember that common sense is your friend. Stop, take a breath. Ask yourself, does this make sense? Your bank will never call you or text you to send them your password. You know, is this something that you would normally receive from this person? Does this sound like the client that you've been working with for months sending this email? So those are, you know, some basic, simple, common sense things, really easy, that you can do to combat cybercrime. And I also want to point this out. This happens a couple times a year, that we will get an onslaught of impersonators saying that they're calling from NAR or texting from NAR for health insurance. NAR will not contact you to solicit your personal information. If you request information from one of our Realtor partner insurance companies, they will call you, but you are the one to initiate that conversation. If you do receive any unsolicited phone calls or texts, please report it to insurancescam@nar.realtor. So just wanted to point that out. All right, real estate fraud. Here we are talking about wire fraud. It is still happening. And I have a case from just a couple of years ago to exemplify that. But what's interesting is that real estate losses are actually down year over year from 2022 to 2023. Now, we don't know what happened with the 2024 statistics. We'll post that to NAR's website as soon as we get that internet crime complaint report. But it's interesting to note that it is down. It is now, last year in 2022, it was number 7 on the top list of scams by loss out of 35 categories. This year it's in 2023, it was 15. So it fell several places. And to me, that means you're doing a great job informing your clients about wire fraud and helping prevent that. So here's how real estate fraud works: is the hackers also using AI. Remember, they're using AI bots to scan the internet to find vulnerable targets. They watch social media. They watch syndication websites to see what houses are going into pending status, to identify potential transactions. And then they create profiles. They follow you online. They learn to impersonate your voice, and AI is making that much easier to impersonate someone's voice and create very real sounding emails that lead to theft. And then they hack into the email system, and then they wait until that, email traffic of back and forth between the agent and the client, and then they send a fraudulent wire instructions and end up stealing the money. So this can result in liability. This case from 2018, the agent was found liable for the client's losses. It was about $168,000 that the agent had to pay to make the buyer whole. And then a few years later, we have this case, Romer versus Heard. And what this said, the complaint just said, we lost money through wire fraud, and it named the title company, the broker, the agent, the listing broker, it named, excuse me, anyone that they could think of that could have had a hand or, allowed their email to be hacked. And what the court said is that, the fact that a hacker infiltrated a transaction doesn't authorize that injured party to sue everyone and anyone on the hope that those parties' actions will reveal themselves in time. So you have to have an actionable case to actually file. Now, here are your be prepared points for wire fraud. We do have this brochure that you could download for free to educate buyers. Education of your clients is crucial, and once is not enough. You can put it in your listing agreement. You can put it in the purchase agreement. You can, use your email signature to talk about wire fraud. You can put it in your newsletter. Don't stop educating throughout the process, especially at that point between acceptance of the contract and closing. Constantly remind your clients about wire fraud. And then, you can use a transaction platform instead of email. Tell your clients that you will never send wire instructions via email. And if they do receive those instructions, to verify those instructions with a phone number that is independently obtained. And then what we call smart email practices. So this is things, smart email practices include things like double checking that the sender's email address is spelled accurately, that there's not an extra O, or there's not, a missing letter in the sender's name. Check that sender's email address. Monitor your email account for outgoing messages. How many of us do this, right? Like, it's pretty rare to go and check your sent file, but if a hacker has infiltrated your email, that sent email will show up in your outbox. So look for that unrecognized activity. Again, keep your operating system and your antivirus programs up to date. And avoid using unsecured public Wi-Fi. Always use a virtual private network, a VPN, if you are on a public Wi-Fi. And of course, never click suspicious attachments if you receive an email that looks suspicious. Include a wire fraud signature, a wire fraud notice in your email signature. We've got a template on nar.realtor. And then finally, use strong passwords in all of your email and online accounts, and use different passwords for every account. I know it's a pain. My first password were my initials and my PIN number for my bank account. Dumb, but it was, the advent of the internet. This was like 30 years ago. And I use that password for everything. But guess what? If a hacker finds your password, they have programs on the dark web where they can input that password and find every account where that password is used. So if you're using the same password for your online shopping account and your bank account, yikes. No, use a different password for every account. And then use two-factor authentication for those online accounts that have it. Turn that on. That's the thing that sends you a text with a code, and that helps secure your transactions and secures your identity online. This is a fascinating website. I wanted to put this in here to show you the strength of your password. More characters are better, a mix of upper and lowercase, using numbers or symbols. And as you can see, 17 characters would take 93 trillion years for a hacker to unlock and figure out. So definitely you can go to that website and check the strength of your password and, create a password convention, if you will. Like, Cartoon Duck 1 and then Cartoon Duck 2 for a different account, or, whatever convention that you want to use. All right. If real estate fraud does occur, notify the other parties, contact the bank immediately, and tell them to stop the transaction if they can, or ask for a letter of indemnity. File a complaint with the FBI at ic3.gov. The faster that your client can do this, and understand your client may be embarrassed that they fell for it, but it's still important to report it, and also report it to the local FBI office, because they can help liaise with the FBI and the banks. Now, the FBI has what they call a recovery team. It's called, the acronym is RAT. And in 2023, over 3,000 incidents were sent to RAT, and 71% of funds were actually recovered. And here's a story. In May of 2023, a buyer in Connecticut, so this is just a couple of years ago, basically fell victim to wire fraud. It took them 2 days to realize it. They received an email from their closing attorney asking them to wire the funds. And even though it was 2 days later, they reported it to the FBI, and the asset recovery team at the FBI was able to immediately initiate a freeze on the recipient financial bank account. And the buyers actually got back $425,000, all but $1,000 were lost, and they were able to close their transaction. So that is a great example that wire fraud is still happening, and reporting it to the FBI can result in a good result. But please notify the FBI as soon as possible. In this case, it took 2 days, but the sooner you can report it, the faster it can be stopped. All right, let's talk about some best practices. Again, these are the very practical things that you can do in your business to combat financial and cybercrime. All right. So you are a small business, let's face it. And maybe you're thinking, who's going to target my brokerage? Like, what data do we really have? Like, how interesting are we? Like, no, we're not a target. But guess what? Small businesses are one of the primary targets for cyber criminals. Why? Because the big companies, they have entire IT departments that are taking care of cybercrime. They are shoring up their defenses. They are training their people, and they are harder to crack now. So they're turning to the small businesses. And what online experts agree on is that these are the top 3 threats to small businesses like yours. The first is malware. So malware is it is a malicious software. So malicious software that is designed to infiltrate your system. It sits in your system maybe for years until it's activated, and then it harvests confidential data, or in some cases destroys the network and the computer system. The next is ransomware. Ransomware is actually a type of malware, but what ransomware does, it basically locks down your system. It locks all of your data, and then they demand a ransom money to get a key to unlock your data. So we could do an entire hour just on ransomware, but just know that ransomware attacks are becoming more focused, more sophisticated, and more costly. And the FBI has actually declared ransomware as the fastest growing malware threat. So be aware of ransomware. And then finally are those data breaches. Now, data breaches can happen in multiple ways, often due to human error, or weak cybersecurity measures, or cybercrime. So for example, using and reusing weak passwords. We just talked about password hygiene, right? Get those strong passwords and use a different one for every account. I cannot say that enough. Using unencrypted Wi-Fi. Again, use a virtual private network or outdated software and operating systems. So those are the primary causes of data breaches. And when you break it down, these are the top 3 ways that hackers get in. So having this information, now you know how they're getting in. Now you can start your defenses, right? And getting prepared to defend against these. So first are unpatched vulnerabilities. That's a really easy fix. Make sure that everything is updated. When those updates come in, execute them, patch up those vulnerabilities. Next is social engineering. So social engineering is where the cyber criminal, the attacker, sounds really good. They, request information. They act like they know you. They sound very authentic, but they're asking you for personal information, your passwords, some social engineering, again, AI generated. One of their tactics is tech support, where they call and say, hey, we noticed that, you have an issue on your system. Let's just, I'll send you a link for remote access. We're calling from a very credible sounding company. Maybe it's your IT vendor that they found out through, maybe you posted on Facebook, hey, we just signed a contract. We're so happy to have them on board to help us. Well, now they know who your IT provider is. And they can say, oh yeah, we're calling from IT provider. We just need to do a check on your system. Here's a link for remote access. And now they have access to your system because, again, they sound credible. And then the third way in is through those phishing emails, suspicious links, and phone calls. Again, asking for personal information and sounding really, really credible. So cybersecurity concerns are recognized as a top threat by 60% of small business owners. But here's the scary statistic. Only 23% say they are prepared to handle a cyber attack if one occurred. So let's make you one of those 23% and increase that percentage so that you are prepared to handle a cyber attack. And here is another key takeaway from this presentation. Remember that first key takeaway was use the phone. The second key takeaway is this: human risk. This is scary. Human risk has now surpassed technology gaps as the biggest cybersecurity challenges for organizations around the globe. And that includes your brokerage or your family, right? Like, this is not just limited to your business. Use this information in your personal life as well. But human error contributed to 95% of data breaches in 2024, meaning that someone voluntarily and perhaps unwittingly handed over their credentials, handed over their personal information, gave the attackers what they needed to execute their attack. So knowing that, how do we shore up the human side of cyber security? So here are 6 things that your business can do. First is to train and educate your agents. Make cybersecurity part of your sales meetings, for example. Use it in your newsletters to your clients. Train your employees about cybersecurity, how to spot phishing emails, how to spot fake websites, and to be suspicious of phone calls that are unsolicited and asking for information. Also establish a process for your agents or your staff to alert you of a suspected breach. And then test your system. That's further on. Hang on. Cybersecurity best practices. Follow these best practices. Again, update your operating systems. Enable spam filters so that junk mail automatically goes to junk. or emails that your email provider has identified as potentially suspicious based on the sender or the content of the email. And again, turn on multi-factor authentication. And then implement standard email notices. So maybe it's, at NAR, when we receive an external email, it'll have a red bar at the top that says, this is coming from an external source. Be careful when clicking links, for example. And again, practice that good hygiene with your passwords. Identify and back up your critical data. So everyone should have a 3-2-1 backup strategy where you have 3 copies of all of your data. So that could be your customer database. It could be transaction files, and have 2 different copies. For example, 2 different copy modes. You could have one on a thumb drive and then one in the cloud, and then store 1 copy offsite. So it's 3-2-1, 3 copies, 2 different modes, and 1 stored offsite. And know who you're doing business with. Know your vendors. Control who has access to your systems, especially if they do not work for you or are not your agent. Utilize vendor questionnaires when you are assessing who to do business with. If you have several candidates to supply you with a particular service, interview them, find out what their capabilities are, find out what their cybersecurity is, and then use contract terms in your contracts with them, things like warranties that they comply with your cyber policy, that they have cyber insurance, for example, and indemnification and limitations of liability. These are all contractual terms that can help you with your vendors if your vendor is the source of the breach or the attack. And then, test your security. Engage an IT professional to help you test, your entire system. And then have an incident response plan. And this can take many forms. I have a link in the resources to template policies, and it includes incident response plans. There is a website. It is free. They offer free templates for really anything cyber related, an AI use policy, an incident response policy, a cybersecurity checklist, everything you could possibly need or your IT provider needs to create these policies and plans are available for free. Now, anytime you use a template, obviously you need to adapt it to your particular business. And it's always a good idea to have your legal counsel look at the final product to ensure that it complies with state, local, and federal laws. So just a little tip, a risk management tip for using templates. So be prepared to combat social engineering. Be mindful of what you're posting on social media. Avoid any kind of personal details like your birth date, your pets' names, because a lot of people use these things for their passwords. And as I mentioned before, they are monitoring social media. They are building profiles of you. And that suspicious email is going to sound really, really credible. Like, hey, Jim, great golf game the other day. Yeah, missing that, that putt on the 3rd hole. Yeah, man, I've been there. I feel ya. But it was great to see you. And by the way, my wife is doing a charity event, and we would love, to get a sponsorship or a donation from you. How does $10,000 sound? Now, this is coming from a person who is actually in that golf game, but it's not them. But because the victim posted on social media, oh, I whiffed this putt on the 3rd hole, now they're able to make that credible sounding ask. Be wary of incoming calls offering IT support. What they do is they flood your email with a ton of spam, and then they call you and say, hey, we can help you. We understand you received a lot of spam. We can help you turn that off. Again, give us access to your desktop. We'll just take care of it for you. Meanwhile, they're executing scripts and installing malware on your system. And again, independently verify any unusual requests. Remember that the IRS will never call you demanding a payment. That is one of the #1 telephone scams is, the IRS demanding payment. and people actually pay it, they will never call you demanding payment. And here's another scary thing. Because of the rise of AI, AI is crafting better and better phishing messages. In fact, they have a higher click-through rate than human written phishing messages. So how can you be prepared against phishing? Remember the signs of a phishing email. So it's asking you to take an immediate action, to download a link, to download a document or click a link. It's sounding and feeling a little bit too good to be true, or something just feels off. Pay attention to your feelings and your intuition. Like, well, this is odd. Like, I once got an email from Amazon saying that my Prime account was suspended and I had to pay immediately. And I'm like, oh my God, I watch Prime all the time. And before I clicked that link, I was like, wait a minute, I'm watching Prime right now. This is a bad email. This is a fake email. So again, and then look for that sense of urgency. Like, you're going to be cut off in a day. Like, the police are going to come tomorrow if you don't pay this. That sense of urgency is a telltale sign of a phishing email. And then finally, is this from someone you know? Do you know this person? Does the URL look correct? Here are some things that you can do if you suspect that you have a phishing email. You can actually hover over the sender's address and look at the link. And if the sender's address is tom@pgatour.com, but the actual sender or destination is a string of characters, that's not tom@pga.com. Don't click the link, but you can actually copy it and put it through a detection website. These will be in your written materials. And then again, about the 14th time, call the sender to verify anything that looks or sounds suspicious. Let me see how much time we have left. Okay, we have like 5 minutes left. Perfect. I'll leave a few minutes for questions. So just a few quick tips about insurance. If you want cyber coverage, definitely contact your E&O provider. But remember that cyber coverage is a supplement and not a replacement for those sound practices that we just talked about. So when you're looking at your E&O policy, it's important to look at who's covered, what is considered a claim, what's not covered. So those exclusions are just as important as what is covered. And then any riders or endorsements. So in an E&O policy, read your policy, see if cyber is covered. And if it's not, contact your broker or your E&O carrier to see if they have a cyber endorsement. And then once you're looking at cyber coverage, there are a few things to keep in mind. You want to ensure that you have forensic expenses. So this is like, let's say you have a data breach and you suspect that someone stole your client data, including, addresses, potentially bank accounts. If, they wrote a check and that you scanned it into the system, their bank account information is in there. And so that forensic expert will come in, assess the damage, assess the source of the damage. And then you'll also want to look for legal expenses. If you do need to send a data privacy notice, an attorney would be able to send that for you. So make sure that the legal expenses are included. Again, those notification expenses, regulatory fines and penalties, credit monitoring. If you need to offer ID theft repair or credit monitoring, that could be covered by insurance. Public relations expense to minimize any reputational harm if it gets out to the public that your brokerage was subject to a data breach. And then liability and defense cost if you are sued. Conduct an annual risk assessment. If your business changes, update your insurance. Tell your broker and update your insurance. And take advantage of any assessment or advice offered by your insurer. E&O carriers have so many resources available to you. Take advantage of them. Make sure that you're reporting claims and potential claims promptly. And again, take advantage of any risk management tools and resources that they offer. Again, with cyber coverage, look at their cyber resources, take their webinars, and learn everything that you can to make sure that your clients, your family, you, and your business are protected. So to wrap up, here are some resources that NAR offers. Again, you're going to receive a PDF with live links to all of these resources. The cybersecurity checklist and the data security and privacy policy are two that I highly recommend that you review, particularly the data security and privacy toolkit. It has a state-by-state breakdown of what's required in your state and step-by-step of what you need to do to become compliant. And then here are some federal resources. The Small Business Association has tremendous resources in their cybersecurity corner. The policy template link there is what I was saying. If you need an incident response plan, if you need an AI usage policy for your brokerage, all of those are available at that policy template website. You can also look at the IC3 report and get more information than what I shared in the brief summary here. And a lot of resources about ransomware. Remember, that is the #1 growing risk. So there are several great resources out there on how to spot and defend yourself from ransomware and what to do if you are the victim of a ransomware attack. So I'm going to close with my contact information. NAR Legal Affairs is always here to help the members in any way that we can. We can't provide legal advice, but we can perhaps point you in the right direction to get the guidance and legal advice that you need. So I think we have a few minutes left for questions. Yeah, we have 7 minutes left for questions.
Wow. Wow. Well, you certainly, I think
I talked really fast.
you accomplished your goals, though. You certainly scared us. And I think that I know that I feel more prepared. And I've worked with you before on the local association side of things. And everyone, all of our members should rest assured that we're doing absolutely everything we can to stay secure. But I will add one thing that we're doing as staff that I have actually translated to my family life, and that is we've created a code word. We've created a code word so that if for instance, a staff member gets a call from another staff member asking for something important or information or something, we know to ask for the code word, because that way, if it's a deep fake or something like that, you know, they hopefully won't know that code word. And so I've instituted the same thing with my family. And you know, it's just who knows if it's enough to keep the bad guys at bay, but it's one more thing, right?
It is one more thing. And, you know, to that point, Pam, you know, you can tell your staff, hey, I will never text you to run to the store and buy, you know, $100 gift cards.
Right.
Yeah. If you're a broker, tell your agents and your staff, I will never text you to go and do, you know, to go and do something, because that is another way that, you know, criminals are using our connections, right? And I don't know how they find the phone numbers, but I've certainly gotten, you know, text from NAR CEO and send it to the IT team. You know, we're being fished.
Yep, for sure, for sure. Well, does anyone have any questions they want to ask? You can just unmute yourself and ask the questions. We will be sending out this presentation after the fact with all of the links that Deanne provided, so that you can take your time and go through all of it. It's a tremendous amount of information, and I'm just so thankful that we were able to do this, Deanne. I can't thank you enough for this.
It is absolutely my pleasure. And it is pretty scary what's happening out there. And again, use this information not just for your business, but for your personal life. And, you know, take care with all of your accounts. And, you know, even if you're in line somewhere and you're doing a bill pay on your phone, because our phones are little computers, we use them for everything. There could be someone, they have devices that can pick up who's online and steal your information, just standing there in line, waiting for dinner or whatever. Or in an airport, it happens. People are swiping your information all the time, whether you know it or not.
Yep. And on that note, that happy note, If there are no more questions, I guess we'll wrap up. And again, thank you very much to Deanne and to the National Association of Realtors. They always have our back. Appreciate it. And I ask everyone to stay tuned for future episodes of our Zoom Power Hour.
Yeah, if I could say, we have one this Friday.
Thank
That's going to
you.
be fantastic. The business
Yep.
case for fair housing. That's going to be sponsored by our DEI committee. And if you haven't signed up yet, we still have some spots left. It's this Friday at noon.
Right.
So, thanks,
And one
everyone.
last thing I want to make a point of is we do have a technology committee here at the association, and that committee has been instrumental in creating a lot of resources for our members. We have a resource page for the technology committee, and one of the planks of our strategic plan is to educate our members about AI and about cybersecurity. So that committee is right on the money, and I'm really, really thankful for the work that they do as well. So if you can tune in this Friday to our Zoom Power Hour on fair housing, the business case for fair housing, I think you'll appreciate it. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Enjoy
everyone.
the rest of your day.
Thanks, Deanne.
Thanks,
We
Deanne.
appreciate it.
My pleasure. Stay safe online, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.